Alright, I don't actually have that much time to film this video, as not only I waited too long with filming this, so the sun is going to go down in a bit, and I only have 24 minutes on this memory card. I don't know what it is, but I need to buy a new one. Bear with me. Let's start. Lorde walked so Billie Eilish could run. Lorde is a 28-year-old singer, producer, and songwriter from Takapuna in New Zealand, praised by the likes of David Bowie, who has said that her music felt like listening to tomorrow. She single-handedly changed the pop landscape with the album that we will be discussing today, Pure Heroine. Royals is the hit that came off of this album, the one that everybody knows, the one that is probably the most discussed on this album. But it is true, the themes that are discussed in the songs are still relevant today, and even if you watch the music video, the aesthetics used in the video would still be timeless and effortless and beautiful, even if they were used today. Lorde came up with the upload of her free EP, The Love Club, which also contained Royals, and she was 16 at the time. It's very charming in the way that she uploaded The Love Club, because it was quite notable at the time that she uploaded it to SoundCloud for free, but she noted the reason being knowing that she wrote it for her own age group, and she wanted to be accessible to those people, and she knew that not all of those people had access to purchasing music. She has since come out with other critically acclaimed works such as Melodrama, and her latest with Jack Antonoff, Solar Power. However, if the indie girlies had a Frank Ocean, it would be Miss Lorde. She loves to disappear. Nobody really knows what she's doing on a day-to-day basis. She's not active on social media. She's very mysterious, but she in general just loves to live a normal life, disappears for a few years, comes back with an amazing album, and we're all okay with it. This album is still widely discussed to this day. It is still relevant. It still has songs that go viral on TikTok. So there's a lot about this album that has been said already. I've been doing quite a lot of research into trying to find stuff that hasn't been said already. This album and Lorde in general were very popular on Tumblr, and Miss Lorde herself has acknowledged and written about the site on this album. She was really one of us. She shared our views on the world and the way our generation was viewed by society. And besides this, she also curated the soundtrack for one of the Hunger Games films, and to me, you can't really get more Tumblr than that. She was awkward, she had bad posture, she had acne, she was introverted, and a feminist. And those were all ways in which she was super relatable. I found this quote from her on my own Tumblr blog from 10 years ago. "The stuff, clothing, that I feel comfortable in and beautiful and cool and strong in is different from what this pop star or indie musician feels comfortable in. I put on a suit and I'm like, I'm badass, and to me that is daring. But if that happened to be your bra and undies that made me feel that way, why deny yourself that? In a world that is trying to tell women all the time that you can't have something that you want for whatever reason." She stops. "No, I don't think about being demure." And the fact that she used the word demure before it even went viral is very on brand for her. Pure Heroine was incredibly ahead of its time. Here's another quote that I found on my Tumblr blog from her. "I feel like there aren't many people my age with a realistic view of what it's like to be my age. A lot of the teenagers in the entertainment industry maybe aren't as accurate. I talk about social situations and the nature of feeling lonely and feeling nostalgic." So a little bit about the recording of this album, which has been said already, but I do feel like it's necessary to repeat in case some people don't know. Lorde was picked up by Universal Music after being spotted at a talent show when she was 12. She then was signed on a development deal in which she worked with various producers and songwriters for 3 years until she was paired up with Joe Little. Then they worked on The Love Club and eventually on Pure Heroine and truly made magic together. The album itself is very minimalist, has very minimal production, and mainly only electronic instruments. And I think it was the bedroom pop album before we really had bedroom pop. Lorde's songwriting is also very notable on this album. She uses double entendres, quadruple entendres, and it's very nostalgic and also minimalist but maximalist at the same time in her songwriting. The album's song structures were influenced by hip-hop, electronic pop, and pop music as the singer listened to those genres to develop the real taste of the direction the production would follow. She has cited in interviews that she was very into electronic music when she was making this album. Let's get into the album, starting with the album cover. On the album cover, we see simple typography, which was unusual for the pop girlies at the time, as in usually the pop girlies would have their face on the album. Lorde didn't want that. She wanted the music to speak for itself, but she also cited an interest in typography art. I also think it just reflects the minimalist nature of the record. There's also a logo on the back of the album that really reflects this kind of, I don't want to say royal, but it's something that feels very medieval and powerful about the way the album cover is designed, and also the way the album is structured and what kind of words she uses throughout the album.
Don't you think that it's boring how...
Before we get started, obviously we have to talk about what I remembered from the album. I got into this album about 2 months after it came out, and I was listening to it a lot. I would say at the time it was a no skip. I liked every song on the album, and I probably revisit Ribs the most, but revisiting this album was very fun because I revisit it quite frequently. It never aged badly. It is still fantastic, and it still has so many relevant themes that are relevant to this day, and it's just really impressive, if you ask me. So let's get into the album itself, starting with Tennis Court. The song reflects on fame and how hollow it is. It has a quadruple entendre, which is very impressive, and it definitely reflects the relatability of being the beauty queen in tears that is just so Tumblr. Also on this album in general, she reflects on small town life and romanticizes it in a way that was very relatable for Tumblr users, including myself, because we did live in cities that were not seen on screen, and these themes come back on this song, on Royals, and on Team. But this song is just still fantastic. I would say it's very much of its time. I did think that if they would remaster it, that they would make it sound a little bit less shallow and hollow. It almost sounds a bit amateur, but I think it works. The minimalism of the song really reflects the message, and Lorde has cited in many interviews that she made this album this way because she wanted the singing and the lyrics to stand in the forefront and not to be distracted by the maximalist attitude that pop music had at the time. Let's move on to the next track, Royals. Like I said before, something about this album, even though it's very modern and minimalist, there's something that feels so ancient and powerful, but I think it's the type of words that she uses, like royals, archaic, impress the empress, those kind of words that just feel very fantasy and fairy tale. But there's a very consistent aesthetic weaved throughout the lyrics of this album. Then we move on to Ribs. Like I mentioned, this was my favorite song, and we get so many TikTok edits to this song, but what can I say? It's fantastic and it's timeless. The song sounds like a memory, especially the I've never felt more alone, feels so scary getting old is so Tumblr, anxiety inducing and nostalgic. Then we have Buzzcut Season. This song, revisiting this after all these years, was unexpectedly political, and it's almost like she had a crystal ball writing this song. I especially think about all the girls with heads inside a dream line, and the reference to the hologram and the pool line. Something about it feels so like it's referencing living inside social media, living inside a computer, living inside a hologram, and connecting with your friends that way in an escapist kind of way. This is still relevant to this day. People use their phone to escape reality. It's just a very sharp observation, and yes, we were in fact disappearing through reblogging pictures of pools on our Tumblr. Let's move on to Team. This is also a fan favorite. She writes about acne and pimples in such a romantic and accepting way that I also haven't seen since. And that was one of the reasons that she was so beloved on the platform. There's an instance where she talks about being edited in a picture, and she was always very honest and open about her struggle with acne and everything that comes with that. And is this song also single-handedly responsible for making Gen Z not interested in clubbing, getting tired to be told to throw your hands up in the air, and now our generation doesn't like clubbing as much? I blame you, Lorde. And I also love the way that this came back on the unremixed version of Girl So Confusing by Charlie XCX on Brat, because I do agree, I do think Lorde should go to a party and throw her hands up. Now let's move on to the next song, Glory and Gore. I don't know how to say this in a way that's just not absolutely blunt and obnoxious, but this song is so Kanye. Ironic because it could basically describe his fall from grace. It is a song about fame and how bloodthirsty it can be. I really recommend reading the Genius article about this song because there's lots of interesting information and analysis, and I'm not just going to repeat the whole Genius article on this video, but it's just so clever and badass, and her cynic view on fame is just very real and on point. Then we have Still Sane. This is one of those songs with the lines that always stuck with me. I won't be heard tripping over on stage. Promise I can stay good. I really wanted to talk about this song in particular because what I noticed through doing my research is that she was pitted against Miley Cyrus quite a lot because she was constantly accused of stealing the #1 spot from Wrecking Ball when Royals went to #1. But Lorde was really not having it. She had expressed multiple times that she was a big fan of Wrecking Ball, she had nothing against Miley Cyrus, that she liked Bangers as an album, and it just really truly reflects Lorde's feminist position, and it was really charming that she refused being pitted against her female counterparts in the industry. I also think that that was very much a first of its era position to take. And it also ties in with the fact that around this time, lots of people were starting to become aware of child stars becoming very unhinged when they were growing up, starting to use lots of drugs, partying, very much stepping away from the innocent image that they would have when they were young. And when Lorde became famous, everybody was worried that that was going to happen to her as well, which is reflected in the line, promise I can stay good. I love that she maintains in the song that she's in it for the music and not in it for the fame and fortune. And all these years later, we can actually confirm that she was not one of those people that ended up with a drug addiction. It was refreshing to see at the time that somebody could still be sane. Okay, I see my memory card flickering. When I come back, it's probably going to be a little bit darker outside. I was right, it did take a bit longer to come back. Please bear with me if it's darker. If you actually like it, please let me know, because I'm definitely a night owl, especially now in winter when it gets dark at 5 o'clock. Okay, we have 2 more songs to talk about before the album would be over. We have White Teeth Teens and A World Alone. White Teeth Teens is just about popular girls and Hollywood, and this didn't get mentioned in the Genius article, but I thought there was a double entendre in the White Teeth Teens Are Out line, because it could simultaneously mean they're out clubbing, they're outside, right? But the way I heard it when I re-listened to the album was White Teeth Teens Are Out, as in like it's not in fashion anymore. Would that ring true for today? Not really, but with the veneer explosion to the point where everybody has fake teeth these days, there is a newfound appreciation for natural teeth. So in that case, I guess you could say White Teeth Teens Are Out, but it's insane that this album is 11 years old, or turning 12 years old this year. Actually, yeah, 2013. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, this song is basically about high school relationships with your fellow classmates, but also the way that relates to being famous. Like, and I think Lorde is the perfect person to talk about this kind of subject matter, because she herself is not someone who really reflects that like perfect Hollywood image with exactly, she knows this, clear skin, and especially being able to play along with the stupid game of Hollywood. She doesn't really do that, because if she did, she would have been a washed up drug addict. And I'm not saying being a washed up drug addict is bad, but I do think she carries herself with a lot of grace, and she's very down to earth. It's something that we don't usually really see in the world of celebrity, someone who can be normal and still write good music. I think a lot of artists struggle with writing about relatable material after they get famous. So perhaps this is why lots of artists write about love, because it's just universally relatable, and it's not something that Lorde really does. Lorde is very much a philosopher and somebody who writes about the condition of life, and that is just something that we see on this album as well. And then we have the last track, A World Alone. This is probably my personal favorite, and I will never get tired of this song. I love this song. The first time I started listening to this album, it was my personal favorite then, is my personal favorite now. And it is probably also the song that was reblogged the most on Tumblr as an actual audio file. It has many quotable moments, like maybe the internet raised us, or maybe people were jerks, or the way my friends complain about work, they're studying business, I study the floor, which I also thought it had like a hidden entendre, because it could mean floorboard, Is she bored of the conversation? Do you feel me? But this song is just really clever and beautiful. And what I liked about watching some of the other content that people made about this album, this person on the internet mentioned that the last line on this album is "Let 'em talk." And if you were to repeat the album once again, the first line would be, "Don't you think that it's boring how people talk?" And the way that ties in together is just so satisfying and clever. And again, it's just so impressive for a songwriter like Lorde at the tender age of 16. Once again, she was 16, a teenager when she wrote this album. It definitely comes down to her mother being a poet and her father being an engineer. She had mentioned in many interviews that her arts were very important in her household when she was growing up. And you can tell that she's just generally a person that stands with 2 feet on the ground. But yeah, so all these years later, is this album still good? I mean, I think it was obvious from how deeply I dived into every single song. Is it Dove? Hold on, I need to Google this. Okay. Dived and dove are both accepted past tense form of the verb dive. Love that. So the way I dived into this album was very detailed, and I think it's partially because I revisited the album quite frequently, but also because it just has aged so gracefully. People still make music like this, and like I mentioned at the beginning, she did single-handedly change the pop landscape, because there's definitely a pre-Pure Heroine era of music, very maximalist, pop, flashy music videos, flashy outfits, flashy performances to go with it, and a post-Pure Heroine pop music. We seriously would not have Billie Eilish and Olivia Rodrigo in the way they made music without Lorde. She just has to be commended for how much work she has put into this album, but also how honest it was, reflective of her fame and her position in the world. And something I also noticed while watching interviews is that some of the interviewers are acting very strange towards her. And she is definitely an icon of the generation in the sense that she was just so imperfect. And she reflected a lot of the worries that our generation had dealt with and is dealing with to this day. And exactly the nostalgia for small towns and normal people life is just so refreshing and still relevant to this day. I think a lot of songwriters were definitely reflecting on how they wrote songs after Lorde came out with her album, and especially David Bowie having complimented her on her art. It's just something that I think a lot of people started asking themselves, is this really how we should be making music? Like I said, it led to other stars becoming famous because of the newfound interest that Lorde was presenting, and the also calling out the industry and fame at large and really asking questions and being very skeptical of how desirable it all really was. And what I like about her is that she just tends to disappear, and what she does is she lives her normal life, she has her normal friends, she does not hang out with people that reflect her fame. She just keeps being a very down-to-earth and honest person, and every album you still notice that. And what else can I still say about this album? If you have never listened to this album in full, I would highly recommend it, because every song has so much interesting lyrical content. It's very deep, and it can definitely help you ask questions about yourself, perhaps answer them. It really asks us, is fame and fortune really what we want? And is it really what we need as well? And the fact that she herself is a very grounded person answers that for us a little bit. And I admire that about her. Yeah, where's Lorde now? Nobody knows. Let me Google this while I'm filming, but there was a picture she uploaded with a bruised eye, and it seems nobody really knows how she obtained the bruised eye. I thought that I saw something where she got the black eye because she was participating in a protest, perhaps a Palestine protest, and she got manhandled by the police. I thought it was one of those reasons. Yeah, it seems that she never really revealed why she uploaded the picture with the bruised eye, and people were speculating that it was a tease for a new album. I think that's a bit insane, because it's definitely a real bruised eye. It would be an insane way to promote your album. But she knows how to keep us on our toes. She's just a normal person living her life. Nobody really knows what she's doing right now. And something I would also recommend to you, especially if you're a fan of the Talking Heads, then I would really recommend that you watch the interview, the Musicians on Musicians interview that Lorde did with David Byrne. That was so interesting to watch. I think David Byrne is very charming. You can tell that she's just kind of fangirling on the inside, but they ask each other really interesting questions, and I like that they picked those two artists to ask each other questions because there's really interesting answers that come out of them, and I especially loved that part of doing research for this video. She did a recent collaboration with Charlie XCX where she birthed the Working It Out on the remix, probably one of the best songs to come out of 2024, and I'm excited to see what she does next. Like I said, she's just a very intelligent person, and I'm always curious about what she has to say about what's going on in the world, so stay tuned. If she does eventually come out with a new album and it's really good, then I will be reviewing it, so I'll be waiting. I hope you're waiting. I hope you enjoyed the video. Go listen to Pure Heroine if you have not, and if you have, then just revisit Lorde today. Why not? Thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Tumblr Retrospective. Next week we will be covering the 1975 self-titled album, and if you have any other suggestions for Tumblr Retrospective, because I have a list of about 10 albums, but if you want me to continue past those 10 albums, then please let me know. And thank you for watching today. Please leave a like and a comment, and if you have any questions, just ask them and I will answer them. So have a good day today, and I will see you next week. Bye.